Oh, hello, it's me, Sonic. Hang on, I can't... Hello, it's me, Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm here to talk to you about the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which everyone hated. Bodacious.
Gotta go fast.
Let's lay our cards out on the table, okay? Sonic's original design for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is fucking disgusting. Like, viscerally disgusting on a primordial bloody level. This elongated humanoid blue rat fuck, this twisted result of God's most drunken mistake, genuinely makes me feel wretched. Like I've watched two clowns fucking eat each other at the same time. This isn't intended to be one of those, wow, this movie ruined my childhood statements, by the way. I don't care for those types of statements at all. I've been under no impression that the Sonic movie had promise. I can envision no world in which a Sonic movie would be good, specifically because it's a Sonic movie. The best you can hope for with any Sonic film is that it will be amusingly terrible, so utterly atrocious that it becomes grimly amusing. This is actually what I've been hoping for. There's no other way I could see myself enjoying this. There's just no earthly way a Hollywood take on the flailing and uncoordinated Sonic license would be anything other than an embarrassment for most people involved. This isn't about ruined childhoods, which by the way can't actually happen with movies because your childhood's in the past, which means it's already happened, which means it can't be altered, which means it can't be ruined anymore because it was already ruined by your awful parents. New movies can suck, but they can't ruin your childhood unless you've never grown up. And before we go any further, yes, I know that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is being aimed primarily at kids. It's the only way I can explain Jim Carrey's performance. But that just compounds my problem with the trailer they showed. The fact that Sonic looks like he belongs in Silent fucking Hill. My personal reaction to the Sonic trailer hinged on a very simple issue. Hollywood's hairy humanoid hate hog made me want to legitimately be sick. I'm not pissing around here. I'm not trying to be funny because I'm literally never funny. I mean, quite honestly and truly, Sonic the Manhog disturbs me at the instinctive level. I want to wrap my hands around its neck and throttle until humanity is saved. And when I throttle it, I'm gonna wear gloves because I don't want to touch that thing. After months of creepy silhouette teasers, a recent trailer revealed the creature in all its mangled hirsute glory, a bright blue body horror whose approximately human proportions and uncanny facial structure made it look like a NIM experiment got caught in a nuclear blast. When looking at the camera, he gives a terrifying Kubrick stare to the audience, as chilling and murderous as Jack Torrance or Alex DeLarge. In my fanfic prequel, Sonic's true name is Brundlehog, having slipped into Goldblum's teleporter instead of a fly. It's hard to pick a single aspect of Sonic as the absolute worst. His weird little eyes are hollow and glassy, his mouth contains human teeth, which paired with the creepy doll face overall makes him look like a haunted toy that wants to eat your bare feet at bath time. His long, muscular legs and enlumpened torso evoke feelings of medical experiments and medieval torture. It's the fingers, however, that truly stand out to me. The fingers. And fuck Paramount for featuring a nauseating close-up of them. There's a reason why Sonic wears gloves in the games, and it's because nobody wants to see a hedgehog with fingers. Nobody wants to see hedgehog fingers. Nobody needs to see Sonic's probing, grasping, unshaven man talons. I've had an artist's impression drawn of Sonic watching you while you sleep. You're not really asleep, though. You're pretending. You know he's there, and he knows you know he's there. He can smell your dreams, and he is pleasured by the sound of your night farts. These are the thoughts forced into my head by the movie trailer because they just had to make him realistic, didn't they? They just couldn't resist making him realistic because Hollywood is the pits. I had our artist create another image, because if Paramount weren't such cowards, they'd go the whole way in making Sonic realistic. As you see, we focused on two key areas. I saw on the internet once that hedgehogs have 5 nipples, and so we've added those without me doing any further research. You may also notice another subtle improvement, and that's Sonic's gigantic dick. Without it, Sonic will never look quite right. So we've done what Hollywood was too much of a coward to do, and finally given Sonic something to hang his rings from. In ditching a more faithful cartoon style and favouring a fairly typical Hollywood realism design, Paramount Pictures focus tested itself into a mutant nightmare, something that screams cynical marketing move and just screams in general. And that's the more legit point of the video. It's not just that Sonic was grotesque and resembled the physical embodiment of vomiting and shitting at the same time, it's that the movie makers were so fucking arrogant they thought they knew more than the designers who have kept Sonic popular and iconic even in the face of mostly garbage video games. And that overconfidence bit them in the arse because the backlash was so severe they're now in panic mode and they're trying to redesign the horrid little fucker with only 6 months left before release. Which if anything just makes the situation worse. Skittering clueless fucks. So whose fault was Shitshow the Hedgehog? 3 companies are named and shamed as the perpetrators of this ghastliness: Blur Studio, Digital Domain, and the Moving Picture Company. Executive producer Tim Miller has had the audacity to justify the war crimes of these teams, making himself equally culpable. Now, according to my notes, they apparently used Ted from the Seth MacFarlane movie Ted as a basis of comparison for Sonic, which makes sense because Ted absolutely looks nothing the fuck like Sonic. Why wouldn't he be the inspiration for Sonic rather than the actual fucking Sonic? Ted! Now, to be completely fair, Ted was used mostly as a reference point for integrating a CG character into a realistic world in a realistic way that looks realistic because realism. But that is itself a problem. Why does it have to look that realistic, that textured, that unlike Sonic? Because he doesn't even look all that realistic. He looks like he escaped from Toontown to pull your fingernails out. Here's the thing, and it's something I still don't get about Hollywood. If you paid for intellectual property, it's because that intellectual property has value. And intellectual property has value because people have bought into what that intellectual property is. Why then must you set about changing it as much as possible so it doesn't resemble the thing you bought? You bought the thing because people liked the fucking thing enough that you bought it, so why rebuild it from scratch? Now, I get it. Movie makers buy the rights to things simply because of the name, because of the brand value. They don't care about the content. But if you paid the cash for the license already, you might as well just go ahead and make the content authentic at the same time, right? Well, no, because Hollywood arrogantly knows better. And just like AAA video game publishers, Hollywood's knowledge comes from focus testing and demographic studies and merchandising opportunities. Any artistic integrity shaved away and replaced with cold hard data. It's why most of these licensed films barely resemble the properties they're based on, because marketing shows that people want realism in their movies. It speaks to a lack of confidence that the IP will sell on its own, even though it was literally sold to them. This is why World War Z is a pretty generic zombie film starring Brad Pitt instead of the unique, cheaper ensemble mockumentary it could have been. This is why Ghost in the Shell stars Scarlett fucking Johansson as Motoko fucking Kusanagi. This rather offensive whitewashing is born of the long-standing Hollywood belief that only white people can sell blockbuster movies, something many studios still cling to even after Black Panther shoved that bullshit back down executive throats. It's worth pointing out that World War Z was a production shitshow and a critical flop, while Ghost in the Shell was an outright box office bomb, a fucking failure. The Mario Brothers film, despite being a fun, shitty dystopian action B-movie, was so disastrous as a Mario movie that Nintendo wouldn't work with Hollywood for decades. And now we have Paramount so shocked by the Sonic backlash and the mockery, they're now desperately redesigning him at the last minute. If you go back and look at the success rate of many licensed films, especially those based on video games, you'll find the same story. Original IP run through the cinema machine and turned into unsuccessful factory standard guff, almost as if watering down the property and providing anything but the very thing that made the property worth buying isn't the guaranteed success executives think it is. There are exceptions, of course, some wildly successful adaptations, quite radically different from the original. Stanley Kubrick did a lot of, took a lot of liberties with The Shining, but that worked mostly because Stephen King writes some weird shit. But in general, and again especially when it comes to video games, Hollywood seems to think being too true to the original won't succeed succeed, while at the same time continuing to fail by making these completely different adaptations. I have no idea how that piece of shit Resident Evil movie franchise makes so much money though. I said there are exceptions, but that's an anomaly. And while we're here, what's the fucking deal with Gangsta's Paradise in that trailer? Are they trying to claim that Sonic himself lives, literally, in a gangster's paradise? Is that where they're trying to convince us Sonic's been spending most his life? Are they seriously trying to suggest that the lyrics of the Coolio classic pertain to the life of Sonic the Hedgehog? Oh wait, no, they just picked an old song from the pile because old songs were popular in Guardians of the Galaxy that time. This is what we call the Suicide Squad school of desperately attempted pop culture synergy. Look at us! Look at us! We remember old songs as well! All of us live in a gangster's paradise. Fuck off. By the way, it's because of Gangsta's Paradise that I can't share much original audio from the trailer because Content ID seizes the video for fucking Coolio's record label. This also means my original trailer reaction video, which is the most popular thing I've done on this shitty go nowhere channel in months, is flagged as belonging to WM fucking G, so thanks a lot, Coolio. You've screwed me over again, Coolio. Coolio! But as well as how disgusting Sonic looks, as well as Hollywood's arrogance. The other thing that I find objectionable about movie Sonic's current horrifying incarnation is how tragically archaic the attitude behind it is. You see, in the early 2000s, when comic book movies were gearing up for their eventual world domination, it was clear that early films were downright embarrassed by the comic book source material, the very material they were exploiting. This self-consciousness was most famously evidenced by the first X-Men movie 19 years ago, where the title characters wore dull black leather outfits rather than their colourful comic book counterparts. At one point, James Marsden's Cyclops says this:
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
The statement here was incredibly clear, and it was coming from the movie, not the character. Comic book costumes don't work in real life. We, the movie makers, know better. Black leather is more realistic, and more realistic means more betterer because we're Fox and fuck you. Well, it's not the year 2000 anymore. The 2010s, dominated by the Marvel Cinematic Universe as they have been, made pretty much any goofy concept viable for movies. Yes, they still get tweaked and redesigned to fit the movie's purpose, but one can't argue that the visuals are pretty effing faithful. We have Captain America in bold blues, characters with blue and green skin and red skin, mixing it up with darker and edgier characters. I mean, for fuck's sake, we now live in a world where Mysterio is an acceptable movie character, complete with goddamn Fishbowl. If we're in a world where Mysterio is movie material, serious movie material, then anything is possible. I mean, fuck's sake, with Bumblebee, even the Michael Bay Transformers have been getting themselves applause for going with the G1 character designs. Though I refuse to see that film on the basis the trailers made me thought I'd see G1 Starscream and it turned out to be fucking Blitzwing. And don't get me wrong, I'm fine with Blitzwing, but don't make me think I'm gonna get an original Starscream and then bait and switch me like that. Fuck you, films. Fuck you forever, Hollywood. God damn you, Coolio! Right now, faithful adaptations are totally in, especially when it comes to old guff. People love to see the old shit they enjoyed as kids recreated on the big screen. You just have to commit to the license and have faith that it can succeed on its own two legs. And being a talented filmmaker helps as well. Detective Pikachu gained major attention for the opposite reason Sonic did. The Pokemon designs in that movie are given a level of realism in their furry and scaly textures, and some of them might look a bit creepy, but they're faithful. They're true to the original designs. There was a compromise between making them fit with live action and keeping them true to the game characters. Pikachu looks like bloody Pikachu. He doesn't look like bloody Pika-Man, because Game Freak have already nailed the Pikachu design. They hit it out the park. It's made so much money for them. You don't need to redesign it. You'd be fucking stupid to try that in a Pokemon film. Hollywood doesn't know how to sell Pokemon better than the company that's been selling Pokemon since 1996. Sonic's design might have attempted to look like an all-new, all-hot version of the Hedgehog, but everything about him was, in reality, a tired, discredited throwback. It's an early 2000s take on Sonic. It's clueless, inept, old-fashioned thinking that Hollywood knows what we want better than we do. That everyone who bought Sonic the Hedgehog games since the 90s, who love the classic design that's provided Sega a mascot for decades, that Sega itself are wrong. That the Sonic design, the world-famous historic design, is somehow wrong. Unsellable, unfit for purpose. The aforementioned executive producer Tim Miller said all you need to know, revealing Sega wasn't keen on Sonic's redesigned eyes and justified it with the following bollocks. I don't think Sega was entirely happy with the eye decision, but these sorts of things you go, it's going to look weird if we don't do this. He's not going to feel like a Pixar character would, because I don't think that's the right aesthetic to make it feel like part of our world. That's just hilariously out of touch and mildly pathetic, and now that they're scrabbling to redesign it, it just looks stupid. It ignores what this entire decade of film success has taught us, and it literally suggests that he knows better than Sega. That's what he's trying to say. He knows more than those who've made bank off Sonic for over 20 years, and he's just wrong. If he thinks this looks better than this, he's a fucking freak. If he thinks this face is more believable than this face, his brain is as fucked up as Sonic's squirming flesh. The fact they'll now be desperately trying to redesign Sonic in the 6 months before the movie releases pretty much backs up what I've said here. But that's not to say I'm in favour of it happening. I was looking forward to making fun of the Manhog for another half a year. I don't even have that anymore. I've just got Jim Carrey making me cringe so hard I want to eat my own teeth. But this does all back me up regardless. For all Tim Miller's posturing and defensiveness and arguments in favour of the Manhog, Paramount happily threw the original design away because the internet made fun of it. If they actually believed in their work, they'd stand by it. But this is about marketing, not artistic integrity. It's about scientifically contriving the most appealing, sellable Sonic possible. And worse, it's heavily suggested they're going to crunch to do it, making artists work excessive overtime to replace the stupid thing. That shouldn't be happening. But it did, because they're not making a movie they care about, they're making a movie specifically to sell shit. That's why it took them a couple of days to make a decision this big about the Sonic design overhaul. A couple of days. That's how much they care about the original artistic vision. As if there's any of that. After the redesign story broke, we entered the backlash phase, where people started criticising those who criticised the original design. Suddenly the hot takes were saying that the original design was fine. It wasn't. It was, and it still is. Fucking despicable. But regardless of your position, I do hope you see where I'm coming from here. I don't care about the Sonic movie on its own. I care about the cynicism and the Hollywood arrogance behind the movie. Sonic the Hedgehog is what happens when you try to design a film by committee. To such an absurd degree, you let the internet dictate its design in a couple of days. That sudden U-turn alone makes me believe this movie is going to be a big bucket of shit. Because these people don't know what the fuck they're doing, and yet they believe they know better. And they don't. You don't know better, Hollywood. You're just being fucking arrogant. And that hedgehog is fucking proper manky, son.
I mean, I kind of like the Sonic movie design.
Shut up, Justin. No, you didn't.
Now, while I wanted to make a very serious point about Hollywood's arrogance and how that plays into this, and how, as I say, movie makers think they know better than the originators of the art they're exploiting, but I was never truly furious with the design for Sonic the Hedgehog in this movie. In fact, I'm kind of, on reflection, sad to see it go, because I like shitty films, I like trash, and as disturbing and upsetting and nightmarish and ghoulish as Sonic the Manhog was, that would have guaranteed an interesting 90 or so minutes. I'd need to be sick into my popcorn bag, but it would be interesting. And now it might just be shit instead of shit and horrendously curious. So I was never that furious at that aspect. But even though there is now a backlash to the Sonic situation, I do stand by the fact that it truly shows off the arrogance of Hollywood, the self-assurance in themselves, and the lack of assurance in the very things they're trying to make money from. But I will say one thing, the design of the Manhog was so bad that you've got Yuji Naka, the father of Sonic, kind of celebrating and thanking fans that it's been redesigned, or it's being redesigned. So, you know, there's that silver lining to the cloud, I guess. I don't know, I feel that without the Manhog, Sonic the Hedgehog is losing the one thing that would make me go and see it in the theatre. Now it just looks like normal, focus-tested Hollywood film. If I could imagine a more traditional Sonic in that role. I don't know. I'm not a child. We do have to remember it's aimed mostly at children. And maybe I am just too old and out of touch to understand what the kids want. Maybe they want a long, muscular, fingered hedgehog. I have to stop now. The mask is filled up with sick. That'll do.
Oh, you forgot to thank God for me.
I know.
Okay.
I'll just say it here now. Thank God for me.